morning. I'm sure glad we had a few people in there. It was awesome. And I try to get in there when we're done rehearsing and stuff. But if you can make it into the prayer room before church, I think you benefit. Bring up something that you want to talk about, something you have a prayer report, a prayer request, or a praise report, or just something to pray for. And we're learning still how to pray, even though we spent a whole year and a half on sermons on how to pray and what prayer was all about. We're still learning how to pray. And it's the fervent, effectual prayer of a righteous man that gets results. And that's what we're getting. We're getting results. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story just here right now because it has to do with my bivocationality. My bivocationality. I have what was a part-time job is now turning into quite close to a full-time job, sometimes more than that. But God has got me there. I know there's no doubt, there's no disappointment or discouragement in that particular thing because I don't go looking for these things, but I'll just tell you a quick story. This was the first experience for Lock Buildings is where I work, and the first experience for him to ship a pole building across to Alaska, shipped from out of Seattle into Alaska, and it was my deal. And then Steve, he's the owner. He did all the work as far as putting all the details together. A lot of changes anyway. That doesn't matter. But I got to meet the woman because she came down. Her and her husband Ron, she came down for something, and I needed to deliver some parts that she was going to put in a suitcase and put on the plane rather than pay shipping to ship them to Kaufman Cove, Alaska. And so I got to meet her, and it was good for me to do that. I just got to see her briefly, but the communication that we've had, emails, texts, and on the phone, I had a vision of like who I was speaking to. But when I got to meet her and to see her demeanor and everything, it just brought something spiritual. I don't know what it was. It wasn't spiritual in the sense that it was the Holy Spirit. I don't know. It's the spirit of man I'm talking about here. The spirit of man. I'm starting to recognize that in people. Anyway, we got everything shipped, and everything went pretty well thanks to a great team of people at the company, and just putting that whole thing together I really didn't have that much to do with it. I was the connection, and then I communicated back and forth, but it happened. So our procedure as salespeople there is to follow up, and we follow up at least once a month for like 6 months. And so I did my follow-up call to her. She didn't answer. I texted her, and I said, I'm just following up to see how the build is going. Did you get your foundation poured, and is everything going well? And I waited a while, and she texted me back, and she said, well, I think she said they haven't started the foundation yet, but the crew that came, the crew came from somewhere else in Alaska, I guess, and came to build this building. She said the cabin they were staying in burned down. They weren't in it, she said. They weren't in it, but the cabin they were burned down. So they went back home, and then the construction company's owner's son was in a four-wheeler accident and nearly died, and they had to life flight him to Seattle, and he's in the hospital. And so everything's on hold for a while. Now, here's the story. So I said to her in a text, I said, well, now, I had not talked to her about Jesus or the Lord or the church or that I was a pastor or anything to this point. All I was a salesman for a company. And I told her, I will have our church and myself to pray for that young man, his parents, his family, and also your project, that it would just go smoothly. And I just want you to know that we'll be praying. So she sent me back a text. She said, thank you so much for the prayers. That is very kind. And it's unimaginable what that family has been through. That was her answer to me. So my answer to that was yes, and we're really good at it too, so expect good things. And she put a heart on the text. So, I'm so glad I get to share this. My Bible reading, it's going to get confusing, but my Bible reading time is every morning, and I look forward to it from the time my eyes open. I just look forward to getting in my office and turning on my computer, and I read it digitally. I listen to it at the same time as it's reading. I do it with all these programs, Speechify and all this stuff. And I just love it because I'm hearing it, I'm seeing it, I'm following the words, and I can stop it and pause it and go look at the Living Commentary and check out things, and then come back and make notes and put it in OneNote. It's all electronic. So I go to the Living Commentary, and I'm reading Andrew Wommack's Living Commentary about this particular verse in Ezekiel. And suddenly I hear, "Tom, is that you?" I look at the screens, and I'm going, what? I thought I recognized the voice, who it was, Denise Capra. And I thought, that's just weird. And so I just kept going. And pretty soon, this whole Zoom meeting started in my ears only. So I went to all my screens. I went to everything that I know about how to do, checked everything out, trying to find that Zoom meeting somewhere in my system. Couldn't find it. All I could hear was them. And what this is, she said, "I don't remember sending you a link, but if you want to join us, that's fine." And so I didn't even have my microphone hooked up, so I fiddled around and got my microphone. I said, "Can you hear me?" And they go, "Yeah." I said, "Well, what is this?" She said, "Well, we have a prayer meeting once a month, or I think it's once a month. We have a prayer meeting once a month, and all of these like A-game people were on this prayer meeting. And that you may not know, but I know. And they were all in this prayer meeting. They just get together and they pray. And so I said, "Okay, great, I'll listen in." So I'm still reading my Bible and stuff, and I'm listening in, and they're praying for the Muslim community, they're praying for the country, they're praying for, in a way that I understand prayer to be effective and fervent. Do you hear what I'm saying? This team knows how to pray. And so I listened in, and finally Dennis said, "Tom, do you have anything?" And I said, "First of all, can you see me?" And they go, "Yeah, we can see you." Which I'm going to always go in my office fully clothed from now on. But I was surprised they could see me, and then I saw the two little things on my camera were lit, but I couldn't find it where I could pull it up on the screen. So I know there was something electronic, but it was miraculously electronic. I'm listening to this. I said, "Yes, I do." And I told them all the story that I just told you. And then I listened to them pray. It was like going to heaven for a few minutes, just listening to their prayers. Powerful, fervent, effectual. They knew how to pray. They were praying from the inside out. They were claiming things and naming things, and it was a powerful experience. And so I just listened. And they weren't loud prayers. They weren't mushy prayers. They were just sincere prayers. And so I just said, this is a miraculous thing. I will never curse technology again. That's what I said. Because I have opportunity to do that several times a day. And I kind of do it several times a day. But I've kind of stopped because it doesn't do any good. I'm learning how to. Anyway. So later on in the day, or maybe the next day, I get a text from the lady in Alaska. Actually, I sent her a text, and I said, "How's things going?" She goes, "Oh, no," I told her, I said, "At 7:40 this morning," this was in the afternoon, I said at 7, because I looked at the clock when we were praying, and I said, "At 7:40 this morning, I miraculously got on a Zoom meeting that I don't even know how I got connected with it audibly, and I just, I told her the story. And she texted me back hours later. She goes, "Well, those prayers must have been heard because he's already home and our project is going to start tomorrow. Wow. So, hearing God doesn't necessarily come from out, it came from a Zoom meeting. It came from electronics, and there's people were scattered all over the United States praying for this situation that was there. And so the effectual prayer reality I got in touch with. Again, in my heart, I got in touch with that. So I know now when I pray, if I pray according to the way that we've studied prayer here for a long time, and we just learn how to pray like that, which you all do. I'm speaking to the choir here, I know, but there might be some people in here that don't, can take advantage of some of this testimony. And don't do what I just said earlier in the sermon. This isn't a thing where you go, oh man, I wish I could do that. That's not good. That's the devil's environment right there. That's what John said. It's where his playground is. I wish I could do that. I'm not very good. The testimony is for power. The testimony is to realize that not only can you do that, but you will do that. You will, but something will come up like that. Amen?